Welcome to Power to the People Pleasers. So excited to have my guest here, Erica Wiederlight, confidence coach. Erica, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, this is great. This is going to be a great conversation. So, you are a podcaster, a really top rated podcaster. So, I'm pumped to have you on here, a speaker and a confidence coach. You're We the Light. Tell me about this, We the Light.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, you can imagine where I got the name from.
Mhm.
But I never imagined, and I was thinking about this morning. I would have never in a million years imagined doing what I do now just
Mm.
because I was so the opposite. So
Yeah.
I would have been like, what are you talking about? So for We the Light, like you said, I have a podcast. I'm a one-on-one coach, group coaching, speaking. It's all about having folks embody their confidence, their radiance, their aliveness, taking up space. And again, I would have LOL'd in the past. Like that was so not my go-to,
Wow.
which is why this work is so important to me.
And what happened for you to switch? What were you but like before, and how did you change over?
Yeah. So as a child, sure. Like this was kind of the flow and in my
Mhm.
aliveness and radiance. And you know the deal. Like as things happen, as life events go on, I kind of thought it was safe to make myself small or hide and people please and all the things. And I had a year, and it was like quite the year, where I had three friends pass away. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. I was going through a horrendous breakup, and I was dealing with an eating disorder.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
was like like it was like, okay, like this is you have an opportunity here, like to like here it is. Like this is your come to Jesus, fall to your knees,
Yeah.
rock bottom moment. And for me, I was like, all right, all right. And this honestly was my mom's cancer diagnosis that got me like interested in it was funny. I was like, I'm doing this for her. I'm doing this for her. And really like I was like, "Oh, I'm so excited to share this with you, mom. I'm so excited to share this with you, with this with you." And obviously that transformed my life as well.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
big. What were some of the things that you were sharing with her that you were so excited to share?
Yeah, I slowly started to get into like mindset and embodiment and, confidence. And it all started to unwind from there. I jokingly said, again, I was like, I was never going to do this work. And I was like, I'm going to do coaching for fun. It's like, yeah, okay, Erica. So I was like, just for fun. I was like, so I could help her. And I remember people were like, I think you're like starting a business. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just sharing this information. Like, and they're like, okay. But like, it slowly started where I would, have friends over and I wouldn't call it a class or a group. I would just, like I was just so touched by everything I was learning that I was like, I have to share it with others. So this had no intention of being a business. I had no idea. Now it makes sense. I'm like, yes, my life was pointing me to this direction the whole time.
Yeah.
But it started from a pure place of like, oh my gosh, this transformed me so much. I have to share. I have to share. That was the big why, and is still the big why underneath the purpose.
Wow, I love it. So we're talking about living our life on autopilot.
Yeah.
Or maybe as we're talking about this topic, I'd love for you to share embodiment work in layman's terms. Pretend I've never heard about this. What do you mean?
Totally. To keep it totally simple, for me, it's being in my body,
Mm,
versus being and again, there's purpose of us being in our head sometimes.
mhm,
Sometimes we have good information, and so it's not to avoid the head, but it's also
mhm,
to be in our body. And that means knowing what sensations are coming up, what emotions. The other day I was doing a class, an embodiment class, and I was like, oh my God, I feel a pain in like very specifically like this part of my hand that I never felt before, but it's because I allowed space for embodiment. So like simple term is being safe and landed in your body.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And the concept of taking up space, you mentioned that. Tell me what that means, please.
Yeah, so taking up space, And it's so funny because we hear this so often in this world. It's like unapologetic, and so I'm like, oh my gosh, I roll my eyes, but there is truth to it. So I'm like, oh no, not me. But unapologetically taking up space, and what I mean is, for a long time I would make myself small, and like actually quite physically. Like I remember sitting on the subway, and I'd be like in a pretzel. I wouldn't speak my truth. I found every way to be agreeable. And that's not saying like, of course, be kind, of course, have values and morals, but I found every way to avoid taking up space. Um, and so what I'm suggesting here is how can we find ways for it to be safe for us to speak our truth, ask
Yeah.
for our needs, make ourselves comfortable in our bodies, like quite
Yeah.
physically taking up space.
Yes, amazing, amazing. So when we talk about, living your life on autopilot, when you're working with clients, where does this show up?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. All the time. I see it, sure, we could go broad stroke, like relationships, even money, you could see it all the big categories, but I even want to like micro
Yes,
parse it
please.
out. Yeah, like silly example, but I always say this is I have people being like, it's Tuesday, that means I have to eat a turkey sandwich, or
Mm,
after like, and you're like, oh my gosh, and they see that they've put themselves in the same pattern over and over and over again. And if that makes you feel safe and comfortable, cool. But they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought, what would it be like if I packed myself sushi instead of the
yeah.
turkey sandwich? Because it's just becomes so ritualistic. And again, there's absolutely a space for it, but I see people like forgetting to be playful of
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm getting into the car, I'm gonna listen to these songs or this podcast. And it's like great. And like there's other things available. So I like to invite my clients into just like starting with the senses of
Mm.
like, like let's try something different to eat. Or, okay, you always use a lavender pillow spray. What would it be like to use peppermint? I'm making something up. But, like I
Oh,
go through the senses and it's like, let's experiment. Let's see if your body is like, oh, I like this. Or like, no. But it's like, let's slowly burst out of the mundane, the like same old, same old, same old.
mhm. So with your clients, is there a specific type of person that comes to you more often based on this concept of autopilot?
No.
They're all
Because
different.
everyone's so different. We all have similarities, but everyone's so different because I think we all find our ways that we go
Mhm.
in autopilot. So one client, I may see it really in this category in their life, and another client in this category, but you know the deal. Like we so often go on autopilot and
Yeah.
just like keep on keeping on, which again, great. Like there's value to that.
Mhm.
But it's that we don't place a value in the society of like, oh my gosh, like the play, the outrageousness, the fun.
Yeah.
Um, I always have people be like, oh my God, I can't believe 5 years passed. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't believe this much time passed. And it's, the deal. It's like about being present and
Yes.
feeling like we're more involved in our life than like, I guess it's just passing by. Yep.
Just
Like,
watching it
see
roll.
ya.
I
Yep.
know.
Like, bye. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's have an example. There's a mother who is busy, very like heavy into the chaos of her children, and she is feeling disconnected on autopilot, wants change. Where would you start with that human?
Oh, love. Okay, that's such a great question. I think parenthood is its own category too, because
Mhm.
it's so
Yeah.
about, like giving, which is great. Like that's, but I think there's something that wants to come through about like reclamation
Mhm.
of like for her, like what's her joy,
Mhm.
even while she's playing with the kids, or like how could she take back a little bit of that power. So if it's like playing with the kids or cooking instead of like, oh boy, I gotta cook 13 pancakes, like
Mhm.
okay, hold on, like I'm gonna put on my favorite
13, that's
yeah.
not gonna feed anybody. I love it. Try again.
Oh,
Oh, I
I'm
love it.
crying. I'm crying. That's amazing. So she's flipping those pancakes. And like instead of being like, again, that's how we shut off and we go on autopilot. Like, I
Mhm.
gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. And I'm not saying wash it away because, like, of course we can't. But how can we add and infuse our joy into that? And it is a discipline
Mhm.
because our brains like stop. Like our brain makes every reason why that's not important. Like I got to get through the checklist, stop. That's not important. But us reclaiming that like pleasure or that aliveness within those like micro moments are so transformative and truly life changing because life happens in the mundane.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do, especially when I'm feeling lower, is turning on some dance music while flipping the pancakes.
Yes. Yes.
What are some other
Yes.
examples that you're like, okay, we're going to be in our body and we're going to touch into our joy? What are some other examples that you would help clients with?
Yeah, I love that you actually extracted like being in our body because I think sometimes people are like, "Oh, I'm down to do this. I'll do it from here." And I'm like, "Wait, hold on." Like I
You
think
gotta,
yeah, I'm like, "Get in the body, get in the
you gotta
body."
dance.
Yeah, I suggest dance breaks all the time. So you nailed it. So dance breaks on dance breaks. I also suggest like sometimes we forget self-touch and that doesn't mean anything crazy, but
Mm,
just to like help us slow down our nervous system like okay, like who as I have this conversation with someone or as I'm in the grocery store, like I'm gonna put my hand over my heart or my chest or my hair, like just getting us back into the body to like self-soothe. It doesn't need to be this big ritual, though we love them. They're
mhm.
great. Sometimes that feels really disempowering because it's like
Yeah.
I don't have time for a 5-hour ritual at 2 in the morning. Like it's just not
Yes.
available. So that's why for me this works really important of like I have a crazy life. I have a busy life and I always ask my clients like in the context of your crazy busy life, how are we going to infuse more pleasure? And they're like, but I'm like, and, and
What do
you're
you
like,
mean?
you're like, oh no, but I'm like, okay. Like, so I relentlessly ask them like,
Mm,
okay, within the context of craziness today, how are we going to find more pleasure? And it's those micro things that we talked about. Like, okay, I have 2 minutes, it's going to be a dance break, or I
mm,
have 30 seconds as I wait for my kids in the pickup line. I'm just going to like take a deep breath. Like I just want us to get good at finding those mini moments that we can interact with.
yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So have you ever had a time where you were on a autopilot?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, and I have to like clock myself too now because I've done this work for a really long time. So, okay, great, broad stroke. But then I notice like, okay, hi Erica, you're
Mm.
blacking out in this area, or like it's funny because we're talking about pleasure and autopilot, but really we could boil it down to like basic spiritual principles, which is like being moment to moment.
Yeah.
So of course I check out. Of course I'm like, like of course as you can tell, I'm a New York, New Jersey. That's where I'm based, or I was born. Excuse me, not based there anymore. But like, I have like that like in my veins. So I really have to get good at being like, hi. I still could be at that intensity, but like, I want to like
Back
be on
down.
board with that versus me
Yeah.
being like checked out. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm. I do actually. I laugh now. People who knew me in university would be like, this girl would never be able to meditate, for example, like to sit still and be quiet.
Right.
Now I have the ability to just sit and be quiet and
Yes.
listen and all of those different, very different aspects. Mhm.
Yeah, it's important. It's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to hear a little bit about your podcast.
Yes.
So share with me what are the topics you like to discuss on your podcast?
Yeah. So I originally started the podcast and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And originally it was embodiment, dating,
Mhm.
sexual empowerment, pleasure, like that kind of world.
Yeah.
And then that's where I started. And it still is based in that. But I, it's become like what's coming up for me in those
Mm.
moments. So now, like the other day, I would record about something like, hey, this is me truth speaking. This is this. So like it shifted because
Mm.
I'm all about like, okay, what's real, what's up for me,
Yeah.
what's been up for my clients, so it started in one direction and it's definitely like peppered with that
Yeah.
energy, but I'm more like, hey, these are the lessons I'm learning right now. does this resonate with you? Let's get on board. But essentially, if you boil it down, if you umbrella it, it's empowerment, it's
Yeah.
self-love, it's all of those like juicy topics that we're kind of talking about today.
I love it. And so what would be the one thing that you're learning right now that you can share with us?
Oh my gosh, so many things. So many things. Oh, this is
Love
such
it.
a good question. Okay. I am learning deeper embodiment than I ever thought, and I ever thought before. And I ignorantly would say in class, like, I'm doing a new program, and I was like, oh, I've been doing embodiment for years. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm shocked at the ways that my body speaks to me, and
Mhm.
that I've completely been like, that's nice. I'm going to speak louder and override what my body's telling
Mm.
me. Ooh, that has been huge. Like, that
Well,
embodiment lesson's been big.
what's an example of your body speaking to you that you might override?
Oh, okay, this is a weird example, but it just popped up. So, I'm a big nail person. Like, I love a fake nail.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You have
Like,
them on? Oh,
so that's why I'm like, love clickety clack. Like, I love the design. I love a fake nail.
okay.
And again, I've been doing this work, this new iteration of this work for, really intensely for a little bit. And I went to the nail place, I think it was like last week, and I was like, yes, I can't wait. In my brain, I'm like, I can't wait. And I was having a reaction to them taking off the nails and putting on new nails. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm having a reaction to the glue and like, and to all the stuff. And I think in the past I've been like, that's nice. Like, I was
I
like,
don't care. I'm
yeah,
getting the nails.
yeah, I'm like, who cares? Like, don't care at all. And I had the same thing with eyelash. Like, I had fake eyelashes for years. My friends were like, your eyes are red. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's fine. Like,
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't matter. I look beautiful. Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
I'm like, at least
I
my eyes,
gotcha.
my red. But so like, I was like, I'm having like like I'm really having a reaction. And usually, again, I would bypass autopilot, be like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And I felt uncomfortable because I'd like speak my truth and I was like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm having a reaction. I think I have to take them off and get like a regular manicure.
Yeah,
Um,
wash. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so, weird, silly example, but I'm noticing that's kind of like the ways that I'm like, oh, or even just getting quiet enough. That's like a bolder example, but like getting quiet enough. Like I said the other day, I was like, oh, there's a pain in my hand. Or
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I had no idea I had like my lower back pain. I just would override it. So
Mm.
like getting quiet enough, and it doesn't have to be for 4 hours, but like actually listening to my body. I like
Yeah.
never did that to the extent
Yeah.
that I do it now.
Wow. Wow. That's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's funny. I feel like I do that practice a lot, but I have never called it embodiment.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. And it is.
That's so interesting. You have I have a light bulb moment happening
Yes.
here. Interesting. Okay, so let's say I'm the client who has this reaction and this experience, then what? Like what's the next step?
Yeah. I think listening.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, listening dot dot dot
Mhm.
and being comfortable to speak your needs. Like, I was having a panic
Mhm.
attack, again, silly example, but at the nail place, I was like, this is so embarrassing. But I was
Mhm.
like, I have to advocate for myself. So
Yes.
speaking it, you know what I mean? Like,
Speaking up.
speaking exactly. Or pretend you have back pain and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the person that's annoying and asks
Mhm.
for a cushion. So I'm gonna whatever, make it.
Right.
So I'm just gonna make it, I'm gonna suffer through it. It's fine, it's fine. Don't be dramatic, whatever. It's like, okay, how am I going to lovingly advocate for myself when appropriate?
Right. So reverse engineering that then when people are having moments but catching themselves saying things like it's fine, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to, pushing yourself down, making yourself small, those kinds of words. That's when we want to shift and stand
Yes.
up for ourselves, notice and stand up for ourselves. Is that right?
Totally. And I think not to be corny, but it does ignite other people. They're like, "Oh my god." Like, they stood up for themselves. Like, I can too. Like, here's another
Mm.
piece I wanna align. Like, we're talking very physical, which is important to the
Yeah.
embodiment, but also the emotional piece
Mm.
of, like, listening, like, "Oh," like, I went inward, and this is
Mhm.
why a lot of people avoid embodiment. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, I'm feeling grief." So it's like giving
Mhm.
ourselves a container to have grief. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm feeling rage I didn't know. Okay, cool. How do we appropriately handle rage?
Mm.
But people avoid going into the body because it's scary. Like, it could be in our brain scary because what am I going to find physically? And also, what am I going to find sensationally, emotionally?
I don't have time to deal with this right now, that kind of thing.
Totally.
Yes, yes.
Totally. And I hear a lot when people avoid their emotions and they're not like, totally that's not their first wheelhouse, if you will. There's
Mhm.
always a fear of if I start grieving now or if I start now, it's
Yeah.
never gonna stop.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And I'm like,
I've
it
heard that.
will, right? It will, but I understand the impulse of like, I don't even want to look at it because I'm scared if I look at it, I'm gonna be crying for 36 days straight. You know
Right,
what
the
I mean?
floodgates. Yeah, for sure. So what would you say to a person like that if you're coaching that person? What's your guidance there?
Yeah, I put them in containers. So what I mean by that is I try to parse it out. So if they
Mm,
are feeling rage, grief, I'm like, great, let's create a container with different tools to
mhm.
process that rage, to process
Mm,
that grief. And then I don't want them stuck there, because
yeah,
that's the fear. They don't want to be stuck there. So it's like
yeah,
we're going to spend part of the session or this check-in like in our bodies, in the rage, in the grief, in the emotion. Like, I
yeah,
got you. Let's go
yeah.
there. But you know the deal. You're like, I don't want to like then go to the doctor's, the coffee shop, and be like dangling in this emotion.
Space. Yes, for
Yeah.
sure, for
So
sure.
I always have them after they are in those emotions,
Mhm.
I always then bring them back to pleasure.
Mm.
Pleasure is kind of like the nervous system regulation where it's like kind of the bow on top.
Yeah, the reset, okay.
Yep,
Very
just for
cool.
now, just for now, you know what I mean? It's not to say
Yeah, yeah.
like, "No, we're happy," but it's it's
No.
it's just
Well,
to
you don't wanna leave them hanging there, so that's really good. Yeah.
exactly, so that way they can go off and be like, "Okay, I could go and function, and I could have these conversations
Mhm,
with, these people," and then they come back to the container. So it's a
mhm.
it's a balance of giving themselves the space of like, "Okay, this is the container where I grieve, I
And the
cry, I do
process.
things." Yep,
Yeah.
and then I come back and I come back. So it's a little I don't wanna say compartmentalized because it's not, but I think it's parsed
Yeah,
out a little bit.
yeah, interesting. Okay, so Erica, I love this conversation. I think we're sharing some really awesome things here. Is there anything that you would wrap up with from the perspective of, you know, living on autopilot? What's the final thoughts here?
Yeah, I just wanna invite everyone with the autopilot piece, to just start to play. Like, and it doesn't have to be I don't need a full turnaround, and I never ask that my clients because 'cause that'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is jarring." I'm not asking you to change your wardrobe and do something crazy, but, like, just notice where we can play more. Notice moments where it's like, "Oh, okay, I just realized I always go to my Bravo and eat the turkey sandwich and like, okay, I'm just gonna try to change it up." So like this is a play invitation to
Mm,
just play um, with
yes.
changing it up a little bit, seeing what you want to try, what you want to explore.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Erica, it was so awesome having you today on this episode, getting to know you and hearing all these juicy tips. So thank you.
Thank you. Seriously, this was amazing.
So fun. So fun. I'm gonna stay in touch with you for sure.
Please, please, it's
Amazing.
amazing. Thank
Amazing.
you.
And thank you so much to our listeners for tuning into this episode of Power to the People Pleasers. And I invite you to join us again next time. Thank you and have a great day.